welcome guys to Fika for Life.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Welcome back, everyone.
Yes.
And today we are having a special, but my co-host is...
Edward Thomas.
And my name is Linh. And today we have a wonderful...
Special guest.
Jonas Eliasson.
Jonas Eliasson.
Ooh.
Who happened to be my husband too.
I know, that's a shame.
Pity me.
I wanted him for my husband first, but you took him.
You had every chance at our wedding.
I know, I tried. But he wouldn't make eye contact with me. It's like, say no, come on.
Say yes to me.
Exactly. I'm what you want.
So, what are we going to talk about?
I think we're going to talk about parenting,
Yes.
especially Christian parenting.
Yes.
Is there a difference, Ed?
Yes, it is. Because we use the Bible and we name our children biblical names like Noah.
Yeah, yeah.
Rebecca and Sarah.
Our daughter's called Naomi, so.
Yeah. So Naomi is just like Noah.
Yeah.
And
No, it's Naomi. What's wrong with you, dude?
Is it Naomi? Is that
Yeah. What's wrong with
really?
you?
I always wondered about that. Might just call her Naomi.
Because it's
That's the English version.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And in Swedish you say Numi?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to look at my Swedish Bible and check that out because I don't believe you. I think it says Naomi.
Naomi. Naomi. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, Christian parenting. We are
Christian
parents,
parenting.
you parent,
I'm a parent.
you big parent.
I'm a big parent. Not just because I'm fat, but because
That's
my
your
children-
words.
You're looking at me. I feel you're judging me already by the size of my stomach. No. Uh, we're very serious today because this is a very serious topic. Christian parenting. That's when you're trying to apply the knowledge of the Bible to the style of parenting. So there's no real biblical. It's not like the Bible says, and if you do it this way, then God will bless you and your children will listen to you and obey you and they'll never write on the walls. That doesn't exist.
Then we already have done things wrongly because Naomi has painted on the walls.
Yeah, kids steal and they bite and so Christian kids aren't any better. They just as evil as any other child, and they need to be taught. But what you teach them, that's probably where Christian parenting comes in. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that in Christian parenting, God is a part of the parental experience, the example. So,
But you know what I find it hard to explain to Naomi. Now we introduced her to Jesus, she knows Jesus, and the other day she said Jesus was in me. Wow,
really?
Because I asked her, where's Jesus? And then she put me in Mom.
my children never said that. They're like, get out of me, Jesus. And I was like, okay, demons.
But I think it's hard for this, she's almost 3, and it's really hard to, explain to her the concept of God. And I don't want her, or it's hard because I tried, God is in the heavens, but it's really hard for her because I don't know if she can grasp, and you are not supposed to make a picture of God the Father either. And then I tried to show her Jesus, she can point out in every Jesus picture who's the guy who's Jesus, but it's not really accurate either.
Yeah, that's really scary because she's pointing to a bunch of white European people.
Yeah.
No one from the Middle East. And she's like, and she'll see finally a real representation of Jesus. That's not my Jesus. He looks a little like he's from the Middle East. That's not my Jesus. My Jesus has got blonde hair and blue eyes. And he speaks Swedish.
And long hair.
Yes, he's got long hair. It's not even my daddy can be Jesus. He's got short hair. No, but I think that you're thinking too much.
I'm thinking too much.
You're overthinking it. Because I think children, they're not thinking on a theological and doctrinal level. Mm-hmm. So they're just they're sort of piggybacking onto your experiences. And so what it is more not so much the knowledge of God as it is the experience of God. So the knowledge of God comes later. So I believe that the experience of God comes first. And I might be wrong because this is research backing this up, but the experience of God comes first, and then the knowledge of God sort of grows like a seed or something. So
yeah, because you gotta be taught, I think, about the knowledge of God. Wow. And I think when you are experiencing God and want to know God, you'll want to know more and ask questions and seek for knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever questions I think for a lot of parents, especially Christian parents, what it is that they want their children to know everything from the very beginning. And I think we have to understand that that God is more invested in children than we are. And so what he does is he allows the questions to grow inside of the child that the child needs to know. And so what happens is that sometimes some kids just sort of experience God and they just kind of blah, blah, blah. For other kids, it's, there's like questions that they would ask. And what it is that you just have to be ready for the question that comes up. And usually they're always hard. So children
not
ask
easy.
harder questions than people because they're not thinking. So they just say
Or they're not like in a set mindset. There are no boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not
anything
like
is possible.
anything is possible.
God could be a purple elephant that breathes like marshmallows, and they would be like, "Oh, okay, sure." Like it's like there's nothing there that says that doesn't make sense.
It's unreasonable.
Yeah, but an
not
adult-
logic.
Yeah. So the thing is that the best way to do that is that for her to experience God through your experience. So here you guys are husband and wife, because I was there when you guys got married.
Yeah.
I made you guys do the kiss, and I was like, oh, it was so beautiful. And so the way that you guys live with God in front of her, live with God together, and then what you invite her into will either prepare her for a greater experience with God or a less experience. Sorry, it all depends upon you guys, and if you fail, well,
Then you screwed up.
You just condemned your daughter. No, but
That's horrible.
I know. What pressure? There's no pressure. No. Well, but you have to. But that would be like the biggest focus. Is to make the experience natural, and to make it. You can't fake it. So you can't give her more happiness than what you have. You can't give her more depth than what you have. You can only give her an experience based on where you're actually at in your relationship with God.
So if we would say, if someone is a parent out there and they feel like, oh, I'm not really invested into Christ, or I don't really know a lot, or I don't really care, I should maybe go to church on Sundays, then I think from what you said would mean that they can't give as much to their kids then.
No, not necessarily. Because say if I don't know that much about the Bible, but I can still pray. So prayer is one of the first things that we actually get children to experience when they're talking about God. We pray for our food. And so in our family, we always prayed for the food. So it's so normal that it just, everyone's like, so one day we're going to eat and we're in a rush. And the kid's like, aren't you going to pray for the food?
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, and I felt like that sting, like, oh no, I'm failing them, And so we prayed for the food first. And then we always made it a routine to pray at the end of the day. So before they went to sleep, we would like put our hands together.
Yeah, we did
and I would
that
just
too.
say so we're going to pray for mommy, and like if they had been fighting, you're going to pray for each other. Not pray for him, he's stupid. You're going to pray for your brother and ask God to help you to forgive, okay? So that's part of the experience is rooted in everyday life as opposed to being rooted in theology. And then as they start going to church, one of the things is that churches should have Sunday schools that are always connected to the service instead of just babysitting and playtimes for kids, so that when parents are talking to the kids, what the kids have experienced has some kind of connection to the service. So we're helping and preparing parents to be able to interact with their children about the things of God. So as they get older, they'll start asking deeper questions like, so did Jesus really die on the cross for everybody? Yes. Did he die for my hamster? Yes. Did he die for the fly on my poop? Yes, he didn't die for the fly on your poop because he only died for human beings.
But you just said it. Also
Yes,
died for the hamster.
I know.
You're testing us.
I just said wrong in the hamster thing. No, he didn't die for the hamsters. Or they'll say, okay, well, did God create everything? Yes. Did he create mosquitoes? Yes, he did.
Why would he?
He loves mosquitoes. So he loves bloodsuckers. You're like, yes, he loves bloodsuckers. And kids they'll just ask really weird things like, and what happens is that as you're answering their questions, and if you don't know the question, always admit that you don't know. Don't be the stupid parent that tries to be everything. Yeah. And if
because then I think the kids will build, like, they put you on the pedestal and they say, oh, but mom and dad know everything. And then someday you will not know everything. And then the whole world will collapse.
Except in my case, I did.
Or they will notice that you're not sure.
Yeah, and it's better just to admit, like you're not sure, or, okay, well, I'm going to find out, and I'm going to come back and give you an answer, and then follow up. And then you can always ask. Like, so it's so funny with children because sometimes you'll have a long conversation about something, and they will ask them the next week, so, we were thinking, and they're just like, oh, why do you want to talk about that? For like their mind is in a totally different place.
That's like Jonas.
It's like, Jonas. That's why I like him so much. Because we can play peekaboo for hours. Me and Jonas are like, peekaboo. And he's like, sorry, Jonas.
You and me outside.
Yeah. No, don't beat me up again. Lynn, your husband's been beating me. When you're away, he beat me up.
Wow. Well, what about those parents who think of putting their kids into Christian schools, Christian preschool?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Into the bubble.
Into the bubble.
Well, if you want your child to live in the Christian bubble, wow. Okay, this is controversial. I don't know if I should say anything. I should be quiet.
But you could say how you did it in your family and what kind of conversations you had.
Well, my wife is not a Christian, so when I brought up the question of Christian schools, oh no, you're not. Like, my wife is Swedish, but she sounded like a black lady. Like, oh, no, you're not. You're not putting my babies in no Christian school. You're not going to be brainwashing them without that God talk. No way.
Did she say that?
Yeah, she said that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, not exactly like that. It was more like...
Your twist.
It was like, no, you cannot put our children into the Christian school because, they need to think for themselves. And I was like, what? So it's more fun when I do it my way.
Okay.
I was like, but she didn't want to, and I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the problems, is that if you're married to someone who doesn't share your faith, raising children becomes harder because you're never going to be synchronized enough to help them to know God. Because one parent will always, like, you can only
counterwork the other one.
Yeah, because you're going to give them their experience. If I don't believe in God, I'm not going to encourage
promote
them.
it. Yeah.
Pray to who? No, Dad's not home tonight, so we don't have to pray to his thing up there, So that becomes one of the struggles. So it's easier, I think, if you want to sort of help your children be open towards the faith and to get their own faith. It's easier, I think, having two parents who have a very active faith. So being married to a non-believer would be the same thing as being married to someone who says, I'm a Christian, but not a practicing Christian.
It's so funny.
They're Christian atheists. No. So that's not my words. That's Craig Rochelle. He wrote a book about being a Christian atheist, and that book has really influenced how I think about things like that now. But
so you couldn't send your kids to Christian schooling?
No, so my kids never got bubbleized. So that's...
But isn't that good in some ways?
But my brother did. So my brother was in the bubble, and he's bubbleized his kids too. So my nieces have grown up only in the beginning. They only went to Christian schools, private schools, and now this is their first time. They live in the States. This is their first time they're at a public school.
Ooh.
And it's just like, who are these people? What's wrong with them? So there's advantages and disadvantages to the bubble. Obviously, the bubble gives a subculture that gives a sort of structure, but I think the structure is false. I think it doesn't prepare kids enough for the world that they're going to meet, which is very critical to the Christian faith, which is maybe even against the Christian faith. And what happens is that since their faith has never been tested, it's never been in contrast to someone else, what happens is...
Can't mature, maybe.
Yeah, like it's an immature faith because it can't take criticism. It can't take the fact that other people don't think the same way that I do. And so either you retreat into the bubble or you leave the faith. So I think that's one of the bad points about the bubble, is that it's not equipping. It's Disneyland Christianity.
Disneyland Christianity.
Yeah, because at Disneyland everyone is nice.
Yeah.
And everything is clean and everything is wholesome. At Disneyland you go around and you smile all the time. Hee hee hee. But the real world is like jacked up. The real world is mean and it's cruel and it's complicated, and not everyone's going to like you.
What about my kids can only watch Christian movies and listen to Christian music and Christian whatnot, and they can only play with Christian kids and Christian families and.
That's like, and I know people are going to react to this. My children can only play with black people, and they only go to black schools, and they can only listen to black music. How does that sound? See, that's just a Christian version of racism. No.
So you think it's not healthy?
I don't think it's healthy.
No.
We're told to live in the world and not of the world, and there needs to be some balance between all the messages that are coming in. So it's a lot harder to be a parent nowadays. But I do believe that that isolating your children in some kind of artificial oasis where you're trying to protect them from the world, you just put them automatically on the defensive. You make them into Christian cactuses. As soon as the world gets close, the thorns are coming out, and you don't hug your cactus, okay? And I think that we want to practice a type of accessibility like Jesus. So everyone was like negative to Jesus' message. Not everyone, but a lot of people were. People didn't agree with Jesus, but everyone could access him. Everyone could get close to him. Jesus was like open. He engaged people. He wasn't afraid. He didn't isolate himself in the bubble. Jesus is definitely anti-bubble. And so I think that's especially for modern Christians like us, I think the whole thing is to live in the world and dare. So the harder thing, the bubble, I don't need to be as Christian. I don't need to be salt and light. Because I'm with all the other salt and light. It's like really easy. But we're called to be salt and a light in the world around us. And then the only way you can do that is to engage. So I like the fact that one of my daughter's best friend was a Muslim who would come to our house. Well, for her, that was the closest thing. She would come to something Christian because we would pray for the food. It was really funny because she's like, oh, this is really cool. You guys actually pray over the food. That's really nice. Because she believed in God, even though maybe it's not the same God, but she was more open to that. Where the atheist friends, they were just it's like I took out my voodoo stick, broke the chicken blood over the food, and said, "Let's eat." It was more of a contrast for them, but it was still sort of a way to sort of close contact with the Christian faith, with someone practicing the Christian faith. My kids would invite their friends to church with them. So both the boys and the girls would invite their friends with them to follow along to church. Sometimes they made friends with people at church, depending upon the church. Sometimes church people aren't as friendly to people who are not bubbleized. Especially if you're living in the bubble, then you like people in the bubble.
Because they are like you.
Yeah, because, they put on the same fake mask. I never have pain.
And parenting seem maybe harder if they're not living in the bubble, as when they start doing things that you maybe don't like them to do.
Like
they
Jonas
go into
did.
Groups. What? You go into groups that you think are not okay, and then you have more to talk with them and show them.
Yeah, I mean, it was I was born in the 60s. In the 70s, then you had like The Exorcist came out. And so we went over from monster movies to more demon movies, more occult movies.
Creepy.
And my mom would always say, this is a Christian household. And my mom did talk like that. This is a Christian household. You will not be bringing that demon stuff into my house. Here is Jesus Christ. It is forbidden for you to see demon movies. So Ed, the good Christian son who is always faithful, always obeys his mother, says, yes, Mom.
And went to his friend and watched the Exorcist movie.
But somehow I ended up... No, I didn't see The Exorcist because it was really scary. But I ended up at other demon movies. I used to love occultic movies. And then I would be terrified when I would come home. It's like, I just heard something. It's someone with a demon inside of them. And I had oh my gosh, I had a really wild imagination. I was a really nerdy kid. And oh my gosh. And we weren't supposed to watch those things. And so my mom would work at night. And we would turn on, my sister and I would watch scary movies. And then we turn the lights on. She's like, have you been watching them demon movies? That's what you get. That's what it means. You're watching the devil. Now the devil's going to get you. Like,
oh my gosh, she said, now the devil's going to get you.
And we're like, no, Mommy. She's like, if you're lying. We're like, no, we're not. Like, we were lying through our teeth because we don't want to get in trouble, So, but yeah. So my mom thought that was a really bad thing. Just like, you have the anti-Harry Potter movement, anti-Dungeons and Dragons, anti-fantasy movies. You read fantasy books, you're not a real Christian because they have witches and warlocks and stuff like that.
And that makes you really occult and not believe in Christ anymore.
So how would you say the best approach to this sort of parenting would be? Totally anti?
Take them to a voodoo service and say, that's what we don't do.
or let them experience and feel the fall.
But not all kids feel the fall, though.
Wow.
I mean, some kids get hooked up with this stuff.
I got into the cult because my Christian parents introduced me to witchcraft. Yes. Because that's... Yes, Jonas. Wow.
Okay, feel the difference.
I think there's
mistakes.
There's a real danger here. The danger is to underplay the world's influence. Underplay... I mean, I know that the occult is really dangerous. I know that people can be possessed by demons. I know I just said that. Oh my gosh, people are going to write to us again. And so of course you don't want to introduce something that's dangerous to your children. You know, you don't sit and smoke crack with your children. We're just going to smoke crack at home because it's always a little bit better when you do it with your parents because we can watch over you while you're getting high on crack. Parents do like with alcohol.
I know with alcohol
pornography.
they do. Pornography.
Yeah, there's parents. Yeah, there's parents out there. It's like it's better that you watch it with us. I'm like, oh, better not. Perverted parents. No, okay. And so there's a real danger. You don't want to introduce something that becomes a trap for them.
Yeah.
And you never know what's a trap. At the same time, you don't want to isolate them. So you have to figure out in the culture you live in the place and the time you live in, what is a balanced, healthy approach, so that maybe like nowadays. So there's this movie called Annabelle, which is
I haven't seen that. I only saw the trailer. I'm like, no way.
Okay, I just saw. Okay, we have a few minutes. So I just saw scary stories that you tell in the dark. Whoo! I screamed so much in that movie theater. But if my children had been at that age, and I would say, okay, listen, let's go see a scary story, and then let's talk about it. So I use that as sort of teaching lesson, so that we're sort of watching together, so I can kind of monitor what they're
how
talking
their
about.
reaction is.
And then I can try to give a sort of Christian perspective on that. So like when they're in the house, I'm like, did you notice like they were really scared of this ghost, but they never asked God for help. So they try to do it on your own, but God says He can help us with things like that. God is more powerful than the ghost or anything.
I used to do that as younger.
What,
No, I don't know
talk
how
about
old I
God?
was.
When you
No,
went to The Exorcist?
no. Yeah, when I was watching like movies that are really scary, or I was really scared, like walking down the street being really scared, I'm like, God, help me.
So maybe it's a good way to help your children to come know God, because you scare them, and it's like the devil's out there, and they're just like, okay, please God, I want to believe in Jesus right now. I want to know. So it's probably not a good way to do it. Probably doesn't really produce any kind of stable
Depth.
foundation. Depth
Living in fear. Yes.
Living in fear.
No, but I think that's like, so there's things like friends, the influence of friends. What do you do when you feel like the influence of a friend is a bad influence?
What about school though? Because school in Sweden teaches some crazy things to the kids.
Well, school is a lot different than when I went to school. So I think it was really difficult. So school would like promote things that in our house we're like, I know that this is what the school promoted, but here we don't believe that. You know, here in our house, we're not going to do that. Halloween was the biggest thing. I don't believe in Halloween. And when Halloween came to Sweden, so I was so happy. Oh, no, Halloween. I'd never have to have the discussion. And then Halloween came to Sweden. And it was so horrible because my kids, I'm like, listen.
All sucked into this.
I'm not saying that you have to be Christian when you're not Christian, but at the same time, your father's Christian, and we want to have a household that honors God. And I can't honor God with you guys going out to celebrate the Lord of the Dead. They're like, but we just want candy. I'm like, I can buy you a bag of candy if you just want. They're like,
You're bribing them.
they're like, no, because it wasn't the same thing. See, the bag of candy wasn't really what they were after. And that's what I was trying
they
to
were
prove to
after
them.
the experience.
Well, I mean, it's experience with something scary, something dangerous, that's forbidden. You know, I remember that, and I'm like, listen, Halloween here is very occultic. It's not even anything that's rooted in Sweden. It's not Swedish tradition. This is something a way for people to make money out of things they don't understand. And I know my children hated it, but the problem was that when I wasn't there,
they did it.
and my wife, who's not a believer, who felt like, what do you mean?
What's
There's
the big deal?
Whatever, you know, let them have fun with everyone else. And then, so they got that double message. So they would sneak out, and they would just have to be home before I got home.
Oh.
So that was one of the disadvantages. But Halloween was like a big thing. Or Christmas. I wanted to have Christmas with Jesus in it, and they want to have a Christmas with jultomten, with Santa Claus in it. Only Jesus. And that was kind of a big struggle, because how do we? In Sweden, we have Christian holidays. Most of our holidays are very religious and Christian in their makeup, but you're supposed to have that without that part of it. So
Without the
Christmas without Jesus, Easter without Jesus. I'm like, what's up with you people? You know, we celebrate the Ascension, we celebrate the whole life of Christ here in Sweden, but you're not supposed to talk about Jesus.
No.
And I think that was for me, that was a real big struggle. Like, it made me depressed sometimes because my in-laws aren't Christian also, and we're trying to introduce, here's this holiday, and I'm not supposed to. Here I am as a Christian, but I'm not supposed to really be Christian on a Christian holiday. That's kind of.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, I think we should come back to this subject. And
Definitely.
Yeah, just like our fatherhood subject, we have to come back to more fatherhood, motherhood, sisterhood, brotherhood.
Grandfatherhood.
How about just living in the hood? Hoodlums, wearing a hood. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I just no idea what we're doing. Okay. But we should definitely do other episodes. I hope you guys like this one. Don't forget to press the like and tell your friends about us.
And
subscribe. And if you have questions, please write to us. Mail. You got all the information there on the bottom, on the screen.
And it will come soon.
Yeah. So you write to us and we'll keep talking.
Yes.
This is Ed Thomas and
Linh Nguyen.
And
Jonas Leson.
see you later at Fika for Life.
Fika for Life.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you have any comments or ideas, please send us a message to fikaforlife@mail.com. Fika, F-I-K-A. This was the Fika for Life podcast with Linh Nguyen and Edward Thomas, and we hope to hear you again.